Thank you, Sam. Good evening, everyone. Now, we've just read a magnificent chapter of the Scriptures, a wonderful account where we see God's great power. And so we're going to look this evening just a little bit of that power and see how extensive it is. I'm not going to talk much about evolution, concentrating very much on what Christadelphians believe in, is creation. And I'm coming under verse 11 of that chapter we've just read, where we read there that God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds." And it was so. So God speaks and it comes into being. Vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees. There are actually over 390,000 recognised species of plant. 390,000. And it's a very crude average, as I'm sure you'd appreciate, but speaking in these broad terms, about 2,000 new plants are discovered every year. So it's an enormous number as that 390,000, but it's ever growing. And here's an example of a group of plants called fairy lanterns. And this one's got a Latin name, which I haven't put down on here because I wouldn't be able to pronounce it, I must confess. But that's only been discovered this year. That's just one, no doubt of a good few. Now we got into September that have been discovered. So the creative might of the Lord is extensive. 390,000 and it's going up to 400,000. Huge number. We come down to verses 20 to 22 and we come from the third day, we're down into the fifth day now of God's creation. And we read there that God said, "Let the water teem with living creatures and let birds fly." And so we have that description in those words there of how they came into being. The fish that fill our seas, the birds that take to our heavens, and the fact that they're able to reproduce after their kind. And they were fruitful. And to give you some idea of the fruitfulness of all this, there are 28,000 different type of fish that have been catalogued. 28,000. They're estimated actually there's between 50 and 100,000 different types of fish. So for all that we've discovered, there may be the same number or more yet to be discovered. Particularly as these days they're able to go further into the great deeps of the oceans. And when they go deep, they're forever finding not one or two things that are new, but maybe 10, 20, maybe 30, 50 different things. Each time they make a great dive to the bottom. But just thinking of freshwater fish, of our rivers and streams, last year, 243 were discovered, new fish. I'll just give you one example in a moment, but before I do, this pie chart caught my eye because I hope you can see there, the print's maybe a bit small, but the purpose of that pie chart is to show they're not all coming from the Amazon or into the darkness of Africa, although a good number of them come from those parts. But even in Europe, there are 18 new freshwater fish in the lakes of Switzerland and so on. And I promised you one picture of one. This is the longhorn cavefish. Thankfully, as well as a Latin name, they've given it a nice, simple name for me to read in English to you. It's typical of most cavefish. It happens to be blind, but it survives very well, thank you very much, and it survived for a long time without man knowing about it. 243 different freshwater fish. As for seawater fish, as I say, it's a vast number that's there to be discovered. Birds. One or two of you know of me and my sister wife Helen here. been interested in birds. We're not what you call twitchers. We're not going to go the length and breadth of the country to see a rarity, but if it's fairly near, within 10, 20 miles, we might be tempted to do so. We certainly keep our eyes open when we're walking about. And I dare say, between the two of us, including our trips just for holidays, not for bird watching in particular, but just for holidays to America and Europe and whatever, we've probably seen 250 maybe different birds, maybe 300 different birds. Even the best of bird spotters are not going to see all 11,000, and at the moment 17 and counting. Lots and lots of different birds. That'd be interesting. Britain has 250 thereabouts, and those who are interested in Israel, as we often are, we talk about the things of Israel. 750 for Israel. Tiny country compared to Britain, but has more birds. Interesting that, but that's another subject. Andean black-goggled tanager discovered this year. Northern silvery-cheeked antshrike discovered this year. Northern giant hummingbird discovered this year, and this one took my eye, a Timor nightjar. I am longing to see a nightjar that we have in Britain. Anyone seen a nightjar in Britain? Oh, I'm so envious, Daniel, so envious.
A bit far away, but it's
I don't care how far away, you've seen it. I saw a condor in Peru for all of about 3 seconds, but it's on my list. And that was way in the distance, but definitely a condor, and I had a bird twitcher next to me, fellow teacher, just happens to be a twitcher. Condor, she said. Right. I'm so envious, Daniel. I'd love to see a nightjar. I've got a fantastic life cycle they have in themselves. But there it is, there's the Timor nightjar. So there's 4 new birds discovered in 2024. We're forever finding new ones. And God said, let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, the livestock, the creatures that move along the ground, and the wild animals, each according to its kind. And it was so. So, you can see how this talk's developing, can't you? We're going to go right through this. I don't expect you to remember all these numbers, but I hope to be impressed by them. 6,400 different mammals. I was surprised by this. Apparently between 40 and 50 new mammals are found every year. I didn't think it would be anything like that. And I've just picked this one out from 2022. I don't know why I should take a strong liking to this. Perhaps my character is something close to that animal, I don't know. But this is a Maine sloth, found in 2022. For all its slow movements and so on, it took a long time before man found it and catalogued it. That's just one of the 6,400, so there's a lot of animals out there. Now we're getting on to really big numbers. There are 900,000 kinds of insects that are known, that have got a Latin name. 900,000. That's a lot of insects. For those of us a bit creepy about insects and so on, and I'm sometimes of that persuasion. I get a bit nervous when I realise there's 33, 34 different types of ants in Britain. I'm not going to go into the creepy crawlies. A lot of different life forms out there that are insects. The question is, how many are left to be discovered and catalogued? How many? Now, this is a real difficult one to estimate. If it's difficult with fish, more difficult with insects. Some say 2 million. It's not a bad guess. I mean, we're nearly up to 1 million, aren't we? 900,000. We're 9/10 of the way to 1 million. 2,000 million. 2,000, I'll get it right in a minute. 2 million. That is a minimum figure because others will say, no, it's up to 30 million. And if you like to pursue this a bit further, you can go on the internet and you'll read of how they go making these estimations and so on. In some ways it seems very crude and almost comical. They'll go into the Amazon, find a big old tree that's nearly at death's door, although they wouldn't dare do it, but they'll cut down this big tree And as they cut it down, then I suppose they have a whole team scrambling all over this tree, collecting all the insects they can find, and then say, hey, how many new ones have we got here? What don't we know? And typically they'll find, as I read the other day, 196. And then they've got to start scratching their heads and coming up with names. And on the basis of that sort of thing, they guess 2 million, some would say 30 million. This is God's power. There's life everywhere. Everywhere, every continent, every situation, every environment. That which is inhabitable is habited by some creature or other. If man's not there, they're there. I love these. These three we discovered last year, 2023. And they're called the group. There's a whole group of these. There's three added to the group. And the group are called Wandering Leaves, which I rather like. So you can see the idea why you might call them Wandering Leaves. And at first glance, they look the same. But I assure you, you look carefully, really carefully, you can spot the difference. And two of them are from the Philippines, and one was found in India. But there you go. We're finding new insects all the time. I'm pausing there because before I go on to bacteria, I've got to tell you that I've overlooked lichen. Lots of lichen, which actually 2 or 3 more creatures coming together as one. Something I didn't realise till recently. There are thousands of different lichen, amazing different type of life form. And the interesting thing about it is an evolutionary nightmare, because you've got fungi going in one route and you've got algae going another, and yet they come together to form something completely different. But I'm not going to talk about them. I'm not even going to put them on my list. And that goes for fungi, which I've just briefly mentioned. There's too many of them. There's fungi everywhere. Amazing stories and ideas about fungi, what fungi can do. It's so easy for me to get sidetracked. So I'm going to move on. We'll just come back to bacteria. There are 30,000 research bacteria. And I'm going to say a positive word for these, because most bacteria that we bump into are good. We tend to think that they're all the bad guys. Well, some of them are, unquestionably. Some of them are very dangerous to us. But there's a lot of bacteria we actually depend upon. On our exterior, and particularly inside us, we're actually full of bacteria. Mostly good, mostly doing a good job for us, actually. So don't get too nervous about the 30,000. And we know them. They've got names. There's the big question. Huge question is this one. The fish is difficult. The insects is difficult. Bacteria, you can have a guess, I can have a guess, we can all have a guess. There are so many different types of bacteria out there. Who knows, other than the Almighty? But estimates range from 10 million to 1 billion. I think that information is hardly worth imparting to you, but there, I've done it now. So life abounds. Absolutely everywhere. Everywhere. So I'll now show you that. And I want you to think about it for a moment. I'll be very disappointed if you didn't all know what it was. I'm not going to give you another picture. A diagram, really, a very simplified diagram. And we've got the sun there on almost the top left-hand corner of that picture. And I guess if not all of you, most of you would probably give me the right answer. Without me teasing you any further, of course, we've got a picture of the moon. And we've got a depiction, let's put it that way, a depiction of the solar system, which I hope you agree with me is vast. We're talking incredible distances when we talk about the solar system, going way out. You know, we send a space probe out and it takes years, going at an incredible speed. We're talking about a vast distance, a huge volume of space. Now, I'm a simple man, and I just look at this in a simple way, as you can already tell. But God has told me something. Simple point. The earth is completely different to all of the orbs, everything else that's out there in the solar system and beyond, far as man can tell at the moment. There's nothing out there. It's dead. It's all dead. Completely dead. Sterile. You know, they send a rocket up and it hits an asteroid and they get delighted at the thought there might be some water there, or there's likelihood there's been water. Okay, but there's no life. Oh, if only there were life. But there's no life there. Or anywhere else they've gone to out of space. And this is one of my favourite pictures of all pictures. This is one of my favourites. Christmas Eve, 1968. Apollo 8 went round the dark side of the moon. Apollo 8 was the first mission whereby man left the orbit of the Earth and into the orbit around the moon. So they were really brave men, they really were. I remember one of the astronauts being called Borman, because I've got a relation by the same name. The others I struggle with, so please forgive me. But Borman led his team, and they went there, and they went round. And not only did they go into a lunar orbit, they actually went round what we call the dark side of the moon. It isn't dark, but for as far as we're concerned, it might as well be. They went round the other side of the moon, and for 45 minutes or thereabouts, they were literally cut off. There was no communication possible with the Earth. They were there, out, gone, unreachable, no communication, nothing. And then after 40 odd minutes, they came round, and one of them took this photograph. What a photograph. And another was so impressed, he read out Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 to 11. It was so obvious, so needful. You look out through the darkness of space, and you look below and you see pitted crater after crater, dust, just nothingness. And there it is, that wonderful blue orb, full of life. What a contrast. And I'm going to show you something a little bit different. Completely different, you might say. Amazing freeze, that. Hasn't even got bacteria in there or anything like that. They're creatures that we can just about see with the naked eye. A collage of the wildlife found in 1 cubic foot of the reef near Maria, French Polynesia. 1 cubic foot. That's about it. All that, and all its different shapes and colours. All that life. And the moon, nothing. When the astronauts came back from Apollo 11, having landed on the moon, and some of us might remember the capsule got picked up, as it often did, with the space missions out of the Pacific, and well, at least the men got picked up from the capsules, bobbing up and down in the Pacific, and then by helicopter they bring them back to the ship using aircraft carriers, you'd expect, on the aircraft carrier. And what they did with the Apollo 3, straight away, quarantine. Quarantine. And I can remember as a 16-year-old, when that was conveyed to me, being somewhat shocked. I wasn't the brightest of 16-year-olds, I must confess, and I may have just missed something, being a bit thick, but it never occurred to me, and I don't remember anyone telling me, that there may be a possibility that these brave men might be bringing some alien force into the planet. Nobody told me about this quarantine issue. And if you don't believe me, by reason of your youth, go and have a look on the internet and see what happened to those 3 men when they were picked up out of the ocean. 3 weeks they were put in quarantine. Armstrong, the first man to walk upon the moon, he had his birthday, sadly. He spent a birthday in quarantine. Boy, was he itching to see his family. Of course he was. They were itching to see him, but no, because they might have just brought in some strange bacteria or life from outer space. Found nothing. Found nothing on the moon rock up as well, for that matter, nothing there too. Apollo 12 went on its way. They came back 3 weeks again. Apollo 13 went up, and you know Tom Hanks in the film doesn't get to the moon. They have problems, so we can leave that one. Thankfully for them, they got back safe, but they didn't get to the moon. Apollo 14, quarantine again, 3 weeks. After that, NASA decided, waste of time. There ain't nothing out there. I'm quite pleased about that, really. I don't know about you. But I tell you that because it emphasises the point. There's nothing out in the solar system. No life, any persuasion of any type, of any kind. Nothing. It's all sterile. And yet our planet is full of life. Wondrously, it's full of life. Created by an all-powerful God. Has not come about by chance. Even the position of the Earth in the solar system is perfect for life. Such as Mars is impossible, or Venus. No, Earth is just right for life. And so life abounds. Myriad upon myriad. And so Job, one of the oldest books in the Bible, this bit of scripture I'm putting before you now is ancient. It really is. It's thousands of years old. And Job, even without that I've been able to impart to you, this man only knowing the creatures and the animals in his locality and his environment, this man had got it right. He says to those around him who question God and God's existence, he says, but ask the animals, they'll teach you. Or the birds in the sky, they will tell you. Or speak to the earth, and it will teach you. Or let the fish in the sea inform you. Which of all these does not know that the hand of the Lord hath done this? In his hand is the life of every creature and the breath of all mankind. Do you not understand, he says? Just look at these animals. Just look at these birds. Look at these fish. Just at those that are around us. And interestingly, in Ezekiel 39, we have a range of animals that God actually presents to Job and makes questions of, but that's another story. But he says, just look at these, and they tell you. Just think about them. Design, creation, purpose. Speaks of wisdom, forethought, care. Job understood. We ought to understand. We've got a greater knowledge in these things than he was ever blessed with. We know so much, we have less excuse. How dare we suggest it's all come together as a random event? Chance upon chance upon chance. A happy throwing of the dice over and over and over and over again. 6 every time. No. Design, purpose, thought. And then we have man, who's special. And when we read in Genesis 1 today, we know that man is special because God tells us that. Let us make man in our image. Oh, this is different. In our image and in our likeness. And there's so much in that phrase that I can't possibly develop now. But I hope you'll bear with me when I say it talks of our potential, not so much the fact that man came into being, but what man might be. Has this potential to take on even the likeness of his creator. What a wondrous thing that is. And so man is completely different. As wondrous all the created things are, man is set apart. So, you may think it trite and silly, but I marvel that I can find that key to the lock straight off after a few times of that particular lock with that key, straight off. The coordination involved in that is amazing. I'm staggered at golfers that can hit a ball, I don't know, quarter of a mile and get it right by the pin. I'm amazed when a footballer can do overhead kick and get it between the posts and it's a goal. I'm amazed when I see someone do Irish dancing on their own, but when they're in a line and the music's playing, oh, how thrilling is that? I'm amazed when you read of a 3-year-old. Yeah, it's sometimes a 3-year-old. I think this one's 5 actually, but he's doing it without the music. There's nothing written before him. And he just remembers a classical piece and the way he goes. Not many of those, but we have a few. And then something trivial like this. Some of you might love snooker. I'm sorry if I've offended you. But here we have a snooker player, and he's not just going to hit the white ball onto the black to put the black bottom left pocket, 7 points. He's going to get the white ball to ricochet off between the pink and the blue, hit the cushion on the top right, then the cushion on the top, and come back between the brown and the green, because the next ball's got to be the yellow. I'm so happy if I get the black in. But he can do it. The skill in that. And then you get a canaletto. Stick me in an art museum and just show me a canaletto. I'm there for half an hour. You can all have a break from my loud, rasping voice. Just mesmerised. How can anyone possibly paint that? Wonderful. And then you put the bonnet up on a car, and I'm no mechanic, but I put up the bonnet, to put the water in and whatever, check the oil. What's going on all there? What is happening all there? But thankfully somebody knows what's going on there. So only man can do this. And then a wedding cake. Again, you might think it trite, but actually, for those that make wedding cakes, it's very, very important. Got to get it absolutely right. It's got to look good. It's got to be fitting for the occasion, and it's got to taste good. And then you take the back off an iPhone, your iPhone, and you get that in front of you. I actually, in partnership with a brother who knew a lot more about computers than myself, the two of us actually made a computer up from bits. That was an interesting experience. Most of the time I just passed the bits to him, but I was there. And I did do a little bit of soldering, and the thing did work. Happy days. But look how complicated that is. Now, I don't want anyone telling me that when a chimpanzee gets a stick, and from that stick can get some ants and whatever and bring it to its mouth, that chimpanzee has got an intelligence comparable with me, as thick as I am. I don't want that to be said. Or a dolphin, who's seen amongst mammals of the sea and creatures of the sea, particularly bright. But don't compare a dolphin to the skills that we've got here. No comparison. You know, and someone can write The Snowman, and we can have the cartoon come out every Christmas time, and Jeff, for the last 40 years, every Christmas ends up in tears. The man's a genius. The imagination, the thought. Cartoon's not bad. And then mathematics. I love mathematics. Not so much these days, but I really loved it in my youth. And then we can build like that and send probes like that, and we can have motorbikes that go 200 miles an hour. Sadly, we've got the plane there, the biggest that's ever been built, Ukrainian, and the Russians have taken it out, sadly, but there you are. And then we can have a cruise liner, which is a world in itself. It not only goes from A to B, it's got restrooms, it's got your cabins, it's got your restaurants, disco floors, swimming. You know, it's a world within a world. And someone navigates it, and someone steers it. Man is completely different. Why anyone wants to do show jumping like this, I found it really difficult to get on a horse. Really struggled to stay on it when I got on it. To be doing something like that, I'm thankful for medical science, mind you, really thankful. Handel's Messiah, wonderful. And to think that a Beethoven can write music and be deaf. And then why should anyone in Yosemite Park want to go up a face like that, shit face like that for fun? I don't know, but they can do it. Some can do it. Have the skill to do it. And yeah, I'm thankful for the stunt I've got in my heart. Maybe one or two others in the room have got that. So I'm really pleased with the progress in medical science. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be here now. Man is beyond, way beyond any other form of creation. Do not be hoodwinked when you watch these nature programs and they say, this animal's intelligent, this animal's real. No, let's line it up against man. Line it up against other creatures, maybe. But we are vastly different. Look at all these qualities I've put on the screen here now. These are all that make us up. This is what we are. Now, interestingly, one or two of those you could attribute to animals. Elephants, for instance, will bury their dead. Amazing that. There's others on there. Time's gone, I can't go through. There's other things on there. No, there's no other animal that does it other than human beings. But most of those characteristics are pretty unique. You know, we can have a discussion on that later if you want to. But there you go. I'm not expecting any primate or whatever starting to get anywhere in terms of progress and calculation or understanding economics or using mathematical. No, sorry. I like the quote of Mark Twain, though. Man is the only animal that blushes and the only animal that needs to. And it's why on both accounts. Why is it that we blush? Not many other creatures seem to do that. And Mark Twain says, very often we need to blush. We are so different. We have been created by God to manifest these things, yes, but also to give him praise and glory, which is another subject, another night. But there is a God, no question of it. To say that we've evolved, and it's all by chance, and the huge series over millennia upon a millennium, mutation after mutation. No, ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. It's ridiculous as to think that that iPhone had been put together by chance, or that car works, all the bits just thrown together, just fit up beautifully in a way no, wish it was that simple. Or we could write the snowman story by chance. So who's going to win the game of chess? I think it's a wonder they got the chimpanzee to sit that long and to get the glasses in the right place, etc., etc. Ridiculous. How many moves ahead will the chimpanzee go? How intelligent do you want that chimpanzee to be? A top-class chess player, how many moves do they see ahead? So I leave you all in the scripture. This was written 3,000 years ago. And it's a wonderful piece of scripture. This is David speaking here by the Spirit of God. But David, again like Job, his experience of the world around him was not like ours. He would know of the creatures and the wonderful life forms in the land of Judah and Israel where he was living. Of course he would. An intelligent man. He would take note of it, and certainly his son did. Solomon speaks of it quite a bit, and lessons to be drawn from those things that he sees around him. But he had nowhere, nothing like the knowledge that we have. But he could say this, and we ought to be saying this in all humility and with thanksgiving as he speaks of God. For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. Creation, not evolution.